recording. Mic check 1, 2. Why is this happening?
You are now listening to the Still Watchable podcast, featuring the platform contains language.
Well, in that case, what am I waiting for?
Exactly, Fran.
Hello, Richard.
Hello, Fran. How's it going?
Good.
Tonight we'll be talking about the film The Platform, which is the English title. The Spanish is El Hoyo, which is The Hole.
That's right.
And it's... Alright, this was your idea, Fran. You get it off.
So yeah, I watched this movie a couple months ago. It was one of those things that was... Well, you can blame Netflix for this. And by the way, you can call it blame. I like the movie. But it's one of those things where, have you noticed Netflix doesn't really let you decide if you're going to watch something or not? If you hesitate, it just starts it. And I'm sure you can turn it off in the settings.
Well,
but...
I get the trailer start.
Okay, maybe they've changed it, which is good. Cause
you mean like it auto-played the movie? Like just...
Yes.
Huh.
Yes, maybe it's only for some things, but it's just like, oh, what is this? Let me check it out, and then it just starts it. Or even with like an episodic series, it'll just go ahead and start the episode, and you're like, I just wanted to know what episode I was on, you know. But
that might be an issue with the platform you're watching it on, because I know different platforms behave differently. Like if you're watching it on like a PlayStation versus a computer versus whatever.
Well, I am watching it on the Xbox 360, which
Gotcha.
I guess is how old now.
It's a little old, Fran.
Yeah, to me that's still like the new system.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah, no, because since I have it on my desktop, I mean, if I mouse over something, it'll start like playing the trailer. It won't actually play the movie. It'll play a trailer or whatever. So that's what I get.
Yeah.
I think on my PlayStation, I get a trailer. I think if I click on it, it starts playing it instead of going to like an options menu, like choose what episode or whatever.
Right.
So maybe that. Yeah, I gotcha.
We need to set some boundaries with Netflix here. Like, come on.
All right, but getting back to the movie.
All right. So basically, that's why I got into it. I just saw it up there. I was like, this looks kind of interesting. And by then, it was already playing. And I was like, all right, what's the worst that could happen? I should set it up. Not many of my friends are horror movie fans.
You are correct, sir. So that's the thing.
You're in that category, right?
Yeah, so the thing was, I didn't like the movie, but not that I thought it was like a bad movie or anything, right? It was just, I don't want to say a little much, but, and it was one of those things where, I mean, it was like hard to watch, but also, I mean, I just had a lot of, not questions, but it was just like confusion, and I mean, I understood everything. There wasn't, because the thing is, the movie wasn't subtle, okay?
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't subliminal at all. I mean, it was a movie designed to like. I think the director actually specified that he knew the movie would be hard to watch, but he hoped it would open up discussion. Yada yada yada.
Yeah, because it's meant to like be a mirror of society, which is pretty brutal as it is right now.
Right,
so he didn't
exactly.
want to like downplay that.
So I didn't think the movie was bad or anything, but yes, it's not the kind of movie I normally sit down to watch or I look to see, if that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, which I understand.
Yeah.
I feel like the way I'm a horror movie fan, although it needs to be a good horror movie. Although that goes with any genre, like good comedy or bad comedy. I can't stand bad comedy, so. But it does seem like more people have an aversion to horror as opposed to having an aversion to comedy. Like, who's like, I don't want to laugh. That's just not for me. You know, like.
That's not for me. I'm sorry. That is amazing. I really want someone to be like that. Now I'm like, oh, there's this new Jim Carrey movie. Do you want to see it? No, I don't. I'm not into comedy. That's not for me. I don't want to laugh. It's like, what the hell do you mean that's not for me? Because that is the
Right.
mentality people have with like horror movies. Like, I don't really like getting scared.
Yeah.
That's not for me. But yeah, I mean, who would use that for any other genre?
Yeah. Do you think people exist? They're like, fun isn't my thing.
I don't want to see a comedy. That's not for me. Yeah, laughing it's not for me. It's like I don't do it, but I get it. Okay, it's like what the hell kind of human
Right.
being are you?
Right. Like, holy shit. Thanks for warning me about who you are.
I know, thanks. I mean, I'm thankful for the honesty, but I will not be talking to you anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
Delete contact.
But sorry, so you were going on about you understand not
Yeah.
everyone's into horror. Yeah.
No, but I do like. I almost feel like we should talk about that because that is a thing that isn't discussed much. Is like, well, what is it that makes people have an aversion to horror movies?
Well, because I was thinking about this because of Parasite, right? Where people call it like a thriller, and then when I was on Hulu, I was scrolling through, and Hulu categorized Parasite as a horror film for some reason. It was in the horror vein, and then I
Right.
was thinking, I was like, yeah, it is kind of scary, but for some reason, it wasn't like as scary or as directly horror as a movie you would traditionally categorize as horror.
Right.
And then, for some reason, the platform, while I was watching it, it did make me think of a completely other movie that called Lobster, or I don't remember if it's The
Oh,
Lobster or
I didn't see
Lobster.
that
Oh
with
yeah, it was called The Lobster.
Colin Farrell.
Yeah, and Rachel Weisz.
I saw a different movie by that director called The Killing of a Sacred Deer, which, okay, spoilers for
Yeah,
that
I
movie and anything we're going to talk about. If you
okay.
hear the name of the movie, just pause it, go watch it, then come back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wasn't really into that one. So I was like, if the Lobster's anything like that, I think I'm out. It's too much.
No, it's really different from Killing of a Sacred Deer. I didn't watch that, but after I watched The Lobster, I was intrigued on the director because he also wrote the film, which is the same concept for the platform, which is, I don't know, Fran, can you? I was like, can you pronounce things in the Spanish, like Iberian way, like in the
Oh,
Peninsula Spanish way?
for
For
El Hoyo?
Yeah, for the platform, the director's name.
Oh, okay. See, this is why I wish we had
Kilo.
in here. I'm not sure. Let me give it a shot. The director's name is Galder Gastelu Urrutia. I'm not
Okay.
sure if that's perfect. I know that El Hoyo is
Oh yeah,
actually
that's fine.
yeah, it is the nickname for the town where this, or the city where this movie was filmed, which is Bilbao, is in the Basque Country, north of Spain, and the nickname for that is El Bocho, which is spelled Botxo. I'm pretty sure the X sounds like a ch.
Right.
But
I-
so yeah, so there's that. But before we go on, I don't know if part of the reason why I didn't want to check out The Lobster is because I have this like irrational. It needs to be a really good movie or show for me to put up with Colin Farrell. I don't know what it is about it,
I gotcha.
about him. It's just like, I don't know.
Well,
I feel like he's
so,
always got the same move. Like he just raises an eyebrow and he's like, "I'm an actor," and I'm like, I can't stand this.
Well, yeah, I mean, he doesn't really do the pretty boy motif for the Lobster film because he actually gains weight.
Okay, and did you like that movie?
Yeah, well, yeah, I liked it. It was really weird. So, all right, again, so spoiler alert for any movie we're talking about. If it's Lobster, Platform, I don't know, Killing of a Sacred Deer, Parasite, who knows, right?
Yeah,
Just spoiler alert.
yeah.
So the Lobster, so I thought about it in terms of like sort of high concept, sort of premise films. Like, if that's why it sort of that's why the Platform reminded me of the Lobster, because the thing with the Lobster was, it was for some reason, single people, like society shuns being single. So then they send you to the special hotel where you have like it's over a month to find a suitable companion, right? Otherwise, you get turned into an animal. If you don't find a mate within the time limit, you get turned into an animal. Okay.
Okay.
And then the thing was like, so while he's like going through this, there's actually, so this is actually like, it's not just this one thing, it's like all of society is built around this like concept that people need to be in a relationship, right? So then there's like essentially the rebels who live in the woods, and their thing is it's the same sort of sentiment, but it's the opposite, where people have to be single. Not even like it's your choice, it's no, you have to be single, you
Mm.
can't be in a relationship. So it's like this weird sort of extremes that, I don't know, it just like the platform was reminding me of while I was watching it. And that's because I guess The Lobster was sort of the last, I guess, non conventional movie. Because literally the last movie I saw in the theater was fucking Onward. All right, that movie's amazing. All right, spoiler alert,
Yeah.
that movie's
It's
awesome.
you have a
But
different taste for a lot of these, but at the same time, speaking of Parasite, isn't Snowpiercer pretty similar, not only in theme but in graphic nature to this movie? And you
yeah,
like that?
I did like that. But
Is it because it's
it's
Korean?
well, I didn't want to say, but also because they didn't act, even though there is cannibal. Okay, okay. Spoiler alert for Snowpiercer. Okay,
We can't say spoiler enough, all right?
okay. In Snowpiercer, there is cannibalism. Whatchamacallit, reference, but it's not shown. And I guess, I mean, that was the thing with like platform is sort of. I don't even
But
like
don't they
because I
eat
was
like
thinking of
don't they
subtlety,
eat like
right?
cockroaches? Like it's pretty
Yeah, yeah, they eat
gross.
bug protein bars.
Oh,
I don't. Well, I mean, insects are a dietary staple in many cultures around the world, so that doesn't really bother me. Um,
all right, to each his own on that one.
I mean, if you look at the human population as a whole, most people eat bugs. Okay, statistically,
I think
most
I
people are
don't know,
eating
man.
bugs.
I almost wonder if it's one of those things that just like these British people want to make documentaries, so they find like these remote places where people are like, sure, yeah, we eat bugs. You're gonna put me on camera? I'll eat this bug. Like every other country I've gone to, I've never seen people just eating bugs out in the streets, like or in restaurants, like unless you count
According
like
to
escargot or stuff like that. But like,
according to this paper, 80% of the world's nations eat insects.
but is that like the McDonald's for them is full of insects, or is it like
No,
it
it's
has
not.
some people in it that eat insects? I don't know if it's
Well,
representative to the population.
it depends on. It's not like in a fast food. Actually, you can like in Korea, you can get bugs in convenience stores, like they're packaged and sold
Really?
commercially.
Wow, they're like
Yeah,
it's not a bug, it's a feature. No pun intended.
yeah, yeah. So that's why it doesn't really bother me eating insects, right? Because it says, yeah, including Central, South America, Africa, Asia,
Dude,
Australia,
I
New
lived in
Zealand.
South
80% of
America.
the
I
world's
never saw
nations.
anybody eating bugs. Like I'm telling you, this is one of those
Fran,
things.
you lived in a part of Colombia where the main pastime was kidnapping, okay? So it's like.
Well, this took a hard turn.
It's like you want to talk about generalizations,
Yeah,
okay?
right.
You want to talk about just
Let's devolve this podcast straight down.
yeah, let's drop it
Well
real
played,
hard.
Richard.
All
Well
right?
played.
Well, yeah, terrible. Oh, so terrible. Anyway, so okay, what the hell were we
I
talking
think we
about?
were.
Oh no, so it
Yeah,
was
go ahead.
the premise of Snowpiercer versus the premise of platform, right? Because it was that thing where it was sort of societal and how classes are literally broken up, basically based on what the hell's the word I'm thinking of? Based on sort of front, back, up, down. Like it's not directional, but
Lateral?
you know what I mean?
Oh, like a
Yeah, I guess
higher hierarchy, like a hierarchical.
exact.
What's the word?
Yeah, like a physical hierarchy,
Yeah,
right? Like people in the front have all the good stuff.
yeah,
That's a terrible way of phrasing that.
yeah. I know what word you're looking for.
And people in the back, you
Stratification,
know,
maybe.
that sounds
I
right,
think
Fran.
so.
And then in the so that's in Snowpiercer, right? People at the front of the train are privileged, and then people at the rear of the train
Yeah.
are unprivileged, disenfranchised, and then people at the top of the platform, or not that platform, but of the building or whatever,
Yeah.
are privileged, and then people lower are unprivileged, right? But I guess the thing with me for the platform was I don't really understand like the not the plot, like I get the premise, but the intent of the resolution of the film.
Okay, so you seem to be one of these people because I perused the internet a little bit to see
Hmm.
what people were saying about the platform right after I saw it, and there wasn't much. And then I told you we should watch this movie, and then we got sidetracked and did some other movies for this podcast. Um,
Hmm.
and then all of a sudden, like a couple weeks later, like this movie kind of blew up on, I guess, on Netflix, and the people started writing articles about it, and a lot of people
Yeah,
said they liked it, but they didn't like the way it resolved or the ending, or they thought it was too ambiguous, which I'm
yeah. I
gonna get into
mean,
later. But
yeah, it blew up mainly because of what we're going through right now with
yeah,
COVID-19. So, and then like the allegory between what's going on in the movie versus literally what's happening now.
right,
I mean, and it's exactly the same, right? Like when you think about COVID-19 and basically what humans, I guess the true nature, like first come first
yeah,
serve, sort of that me mentality, right? And then the other thing, it's sort of brought out, it was like recently Alex Jones, that crazy conspiracy theorist or whatever, like he went on this tirade about like lockdown and then threatening like to kill his neighbors in order to feed his children.
Jesus
Um,
Christ,
so that was one of those weird things that was like it was causing me difficulty watching the film because like it had recently happened or I recently found out about that before I watched this movie, right? So that
yeah,
was sort of in my mind, was which making it difficult to watch.
yeah, I
Um,
gotcha. But at the end of the day, though, it's a movie about pointing out how futile that mentality is. So it's
right.
like it would be good for people like that to watch this movie.
Well, that's the thing. If it will actually, if it will speak to them, or if it'll be
That's true.
like,
Just give them a reason to.
right. And that's always the concern, right? It's
Yeah.
like if you show someone art, right? Art is
Hmm.
subjective, and then it's like what people take away from it anyway. So it's always like tricky, like, oh, here, watch this. This will prove a point. Then people will be like, well, no, it didn't, and then that's a whole other thing.
Right.
Um, although I will, I mean, do you have notes? Because my thoughts on the movie are, it's all very scattered. I
Yeah,
mean,
I kind of like this format for this movie because I mean you're either gonna see this movie or not, and if you see it, it's better to obviously watch it before knowing what happens. So I don't think we should go into it in detail like the plot,
right,
but
I
yeah, we
gotcha.
can just keep it flowy like this. But I
Like there
totally.
was a
Oh,
lot of
go ahead,
like,
go ahead.
oh no, you go ahead
I
if
was
you
just
have
going to
a.
add to the fact that yeah, I think you're absolutely right that this global emergency has brought to mind like issues like income inequality and the hoarding of supplies or even like excess wealth and how people deal with that, and perhaps that's why it took off. But yeah, it is a hard movie to get through, even though I really
Hmm.
liked it. But yeah, go ahead.
No, yeah, yeah. Like the one thing that did crack me up was the discussion between Goreng and Trimagasi when like he was trying to explain when Trimagasi, the veteran of the system,
Mhm.
was explaining, and how every question Goreng, the protagonist, asked was just answered with obviously. Like
Right.
this should all be obviously to you,
Yeah,
buddy.
yeah.
It's like, people above us, we don't talk to them. Well, why not? It's like, well, because they're above us,
Right.
obviously.
Obviously.
And then people below, well, don't talk to them.
Yeah.
Well, why not? Because they're below us, obviously, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's it was very poignant. But that was the thing, was like the movie wasn't sort of like subtle, and which actually the one point that cracked me up with its unsubtlety was nearing the end when so they had the plan of rationing out the food, right?
Hmm.
And then they get to the one guy, and so like they're like, first they do try to explain like, look, you ate yesterday, you've basically eaten every day this month, you're not really hungry, there are people that are hungry, they need this food more than you. And the people were like, fuck that, I'm on the upper level, I'm entitled to eat, right? So then they very intelligently they dismembered their bed, so they had metal bars as a part of the frame,
Mm.
and then they were just using that to fight people off, right?
Right, right.
So then, and then so we went to the default where they're like, well, let's not talk, we'll just threaten anyone who comes near us, right? So then they get to the dude in the wheelchair,
Yeah.
and they immediately just start swearing like, back off, back off, back off, right? And
Yeah,
the dude
yeah.
in the wheelchair is like, yo, calm down. And then um he's like, what's going on? And they explain, they're like, we're trying to give food to the people who are lower. We're trying to, yada, yada, yada. And then
Yeah.
the guy in the wheelchair is like, okay, that's great, but try to be, delicate and polite about it. It's like words should be first, right? And then they're
Mm.
like, well, what happens if words don't work? And then the guy in the wheelchair is just like, well, then you hit him over the head, right? So then they get to the next level, and they do try that. And then the girl is like, no, fuck that, I'm gonna eat. So then they bash him over the head, and then they
Right.
immediately default back to that plan, and it's like first thought, best thought, right? Like that
Right, right.
mentality. It's like, yeah, it's
We
just
tried
like
it.
that cracked me up. Like we tried it once, we
Yeah,
knew,
yeah,
and then
yeah.
first thought, best thought, just keep fighting. So that cracked me up, right? But then
Yeah,
it was just like,
there are little moments of humor in it, and it should be noted that two of the main actors in this, let's see, Ivan Masagi, sorry, I'm gonna mispronounce things, as Goring, and Antonia San Juan as Imagiri, I think, who plays the other person who volunteered to go in, the lady that goes in with the dog, and both of them are known as primarily comedic actors, but they were chosen in this much more serious role. I think because they said it might add a little bit of levity to some moments like that. Although,
yeah, levity. That's
yeah, right, yeah, and I think some of that is going to be lost for people that are watching it in the U.S. that might not get some of that, and
right.
but Goring, Ivan Masagi, did play a pretty non-comedic role in Pan's Labyrinth. I don't know if you remember him in that.
Wait, who was he in Pan?
I'm pretty sure he was a stutterer.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that
I think
happened.
that's who he was. Yeah, he's definitely in that. Yeah. Spoilers, but no, we won't go into that movie, but and Antonia, she's in All About My Mother for Almodovar fans.
Okay.
But yeah, I think I've also seen some of those complaints about it not being subtle enough with its commentary, but at the same time, I think that's kind of why it gained ground on Netflix and what people are getting into
Yeah,
it,
I mean,
because it seems like the time for subtlety is over. Like,
Yeah.
look at the world leaders we have. Like,
Yeah, I mean-
filming someone stepping on a flower isn't going to cut it these days.
Yeah, that is very poignant, and that's one of the things is that, like, yeah, we tried subtle, it didn't work, because, I mean, even in the
Exactly.
film, right, it was, like, for 2 weeks when he was paired with the woman who put him into the tower, like, she rationed out a plate, she made it for the next, every day for 2 weeks, she tried to explain, and they wouldn't listen.
Yeah. No.
They only listened when Goreng threatened them.
Exactly. Very
And
good
the thing
point.
was, so at that point they had to like listen because they were threatened. And then she's like, "Well, why can't you do that, like to the people above us?" And he's like, "Well, I can't threaten them, okay? Because I can't,
I can't upwards.
I can't upward. I didn't want to say it, but well, I mean, okay. Given what else happens in the movie, yeah, it. All right. He's like, I can't shit upwards.
I can
okay?
bleep it out if we're trying to keep it.
No, yeah, fuck it. Cause I mean, I'll just say it. A woman literally shits on a dude's face, and I don't think that would. I think that really happened. Okay, I think that was real. Okay, that's one of the reasons I didn't like the film. All right, I was like, yeah, that happened.
I didn't remember that. I must have blocked it out.
Yeah,
because I watched it. I watched it a long time ago, and as soon as you watched it, you're like, "We need to talk about this movie ASAP so I can get it out of my head."
I couldn't fall asleep for 2 hours after watching it. I watched it right before bed. It took me 2 hours to fall asleep, longer than I normally do. Because I had a lot of thoughts, but then also I was like, why? I was like, well, God damn it, I can't get the vision of her shitting on his face out of my head.
Oh, dude. Thankfully, I was able to move on from that moment.
Yeah, it burned into my brain, and I was like, great. I was like, that's in my brain now. So then, yeah, and that's like, that's again the point of the subtlety is like he can only threaten people below him. He can literally do nothing to threaten people above him, so he can't get to them, and or he can't get across to them. He can only get across to them if he becomes above them. And that's the thing is that it's completely random where you end up in the tower. There's like
Yeah.
And that's one of the
Because
things. Oh no, you can go.
I wrote this down somewhere. Let's see. He starts out on floor 48, then
That's
they go to
correct.
171,
Hmm.
33, 202, 6, and eventually 333. So, yeah, it was one of those things where during the movie I was trying to figure out, is there a rhyme or reason to the level where they wake up? Like, if you do good, do you wake up in a better level? But then
No.
that's clearly not the case, because then, yeah, what's his name? The horrible person, Trimagasi, wouldn't have ended up in a better level anyway, since clearly his MO is just always to be horrible.
Yeah,
uh,
because at the beginning of the film, they say there's three types of people: those at the top, those at the bottom, and those who fall. Right. Um,
right.
that's sort of the premise, and I guess like one thing that was like not the subtlety, but it was like the book he brought with him was Don Quixote, which is famously a delusional man, right? And then coming to
Hmm.
like grips. So I was like, all right, it's not really subtle. And then they keep bringing up God. Are you a religious person? And like I was like, well, Spain is sort of famously known for being Catholic. I mean, kind of super
Right.
Catholic. So I was like, all right. Which I mean, again, that's something you have to bring in is like the culture of the director and understanding the history and applying it to the film. And then
Yeah.
the fact that there was 333 levels, and then it's like, okay, then there's two people a level. That means there's 666. I was like, that's not
Right.
really that subtle either. So I was like, all right, but
Yeah. It's not very subtle, but I think you're thinking of it more like, oh, they're in hell, whereas I thought it was interesting because to me the message is we're in the bad place. Like, this is it. We're in whatever this is, whether it's purgatory or hell, or
well,
because
that
this
yeah,
is
it's
our system, you know. So
yeah, but that
it
yeah,
does have some bits of Dante's Inferno into it, and I
hmm
was trying to see if that connected, if Goring is Dante, and maybe the angel is the organizer that herself volunteers, or I don't know. I was trying
well,
to see
that's the thing.
if
It's like
that all added up.
If Trimagasu is Virgil, and then if the lady is what's her name, Penelope, Persephone? No, no,
Uh,
it's
she was Imogiri.
no, I know. I'm talking about in Dante's Inferno, who he
Oh,
was
oh, in Dante's.
chasing.
Yeah, I I used to know this. I forget. If you
Either
want, you can
way,
look it up. I'll
no, no,
I'll
I
mute it
can,
later.
no, I can. But and then yeah, it's one of those weird thing, not weird things, but it was like so she was a part of the system, right? But then because the system wasn't what she thought, like she ended up killing. Well, she also killed herself because her fucking dog was killed. Um,
Right.
and then it's like just sort of weird, like the woman looking for her child. That sort of threw me off because of it just sort of threw me off on like does she wake up and then immediately descend and then she gets to some level where she gets kidnapped and then kills people and then just hangs out for the rest of the month before going the process over again? Does she ever make it to the bottom to get her daughter? Um,
Yeah.
because it was just like sort of like that weird thing. Like it didn't really work for me, I guess.
I
Um,
got you. And a lot of the comments I've seen mirror what you're saying,
mhm.
and I liked it because in my head I came up with something that fits. Like, a lot of people say it's like an ambiguous ending, but to me, it's I sort of see it as like, look, the girl is literally called the message. The message is sent. It's about a film uh, waking society up from its current, like, yeah, stratification, a system that's broken, and there weren't supposed to be any children in the whole, but she is proof that there was at least one child, so the system is flawed, and the fact that she's alive is proof that at least one person has helped her. Like, he helps her get to the top, so others must have done that too. So the
But
message is just like, you have to be like generous to each other to be able to like make it out there.
But that's sort of the thing
Uh,
about the system, right? It's like because the system clearly knows the girl is there because they move everyone.
mhm.
So then, does sending the message to the system matter if the system knows the girl is there?
Yeah, that is the type of question that like basically brings up like, is the movie redundant? But to me, it's just like, look, the system knows it's there. The system clearly knows there's horrible stuff going on because you have bodies every day. They kill people for stealing more food than they should have. Like,
Yes,
it's not
so
like they're
it's
the most moral people. So it's more like the message is like, look at the sacrifices we've gone through to help out this one girl. Like, and you say she shouldn't exist, but here she is. Like we've whoever receives this message has the decision with how they continue going on about their lives, and whether that's the cooks at the top that get the girl or someone else. Maybe they aren't as aware of what's going on down there, or maybe it'll be a wake up call to them.
I
So
gotcha, but for me, it didn't work. 'Cause, I mean, like the grill, like they or the cooks, I should say, like they weren't there. They sporadically were in there in moments. It was all silent unless I don't know. I guess the director had his voiceover or whatever. Like at one point where they showed the hair in the food, and sort of like the perfection of this food needs to be, and then the system is sort of
right.
designed around the people themselves, right? Like, well, the woman
Mm-hmm.
who works there, she said she's worked there 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
She's been sending people, and then she thinks she's like, oh, if everyone, just ate their portion, there'd be enough to feed everyone. And
Right.
she's also of the belief that there's like, 200 levels. She's like firm in that. And then when
Right.
she realizes how it's going, she was like, I didn't know. And then when she actually gets to below 200, because she thought there was only 200 levels, and then she
Mm-hmm.
looks down. I mean, they don't show her looking down, but it's pretty clear. I mean, she's below 200, and there's still shit below her. She
Yeah.
kills herself, although her dog also died, which that as like
Yeah, that was
when
rough.
it was
But
rough, but it wasn't what I thought was gonna happen to the dog, because I thought they showed the dog on the platform. I thought it was gonna get stuck
mhm.
there and then eaten raw by
Oh,
a lower
jeez, yeah, that'd
level.
be horror. It
That's
is
what.
that kind of movie where you're expecting the worst to happen.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. So I was expecting that, and I was like, I can't watch this. I was like, given what they've shown, they're literally going to show some person bite this dog. Okay, I was like, so I was like, I can't do this right. But then, so that doesn't happen. The dog just takes some scrap of food, and thankfully he grabs it and throws it away. And then the woman sort of comes to the realization. Um,
yeah.
and then yeah, just
Uh,
like below at the No, go on if you have any notes, because I'm just gonna crack up thinking about it.
well, I guess I was just gonna add to the fact that if she worked there for 20 years and she was unaware of how many floors there were, that shows that the message might be a success when it gets to the top. Because some of those people might be like, "Whoa, there was a kid in there." Like some of those people might just be buying into like, how many things are we told by whoever, whether it's the government or big corporations or whatever, that they're doing things a certain way, and those who are suffering are seeing a different side of that. So it's like, to me, it's a very good way to bring
I,
a subject like that up, and I like movies that open up a discussion afterwards. So that's
I
part of the
gotcha.
reason why I like it too. But
Well, for me, it was like, because they don't explain why this system was designed in the first place. It's not an experiment. I mean, it acts as a form of punishment for some people, right? Like, and then it's voluntary for the others. Like, the main character went in there voluntarily for a 6-month
yeah,
stint to get a diploma, and then also to help him quit smoking. Those were his two. He figures if he
yeah,
goes 6 months cold turkey, the other guy,
right,
his first, I guess, I don't know, cellmate, I don't know what you want to call it.
yeah, yeah,
He committed manslaughter, and then his options were either the tower or something else. I don't remember if it was like a psychiatric thing.
yeah,
Um,
something bad. And the tower was a shorter sentence.
yeah, yeah. So then he chose that, but then it's not really clear of why this exists in the first place, as to just because then that
Right.
would help in turn be a message for the system, because why the system exists in the first place if it's not just to see people tear each other apart. I mean, because the system itself is itself inherently created by the inhabitants, right? Like it's like, as he says, or even the
Hmm.
woman falsely believes, like, oh, if people just took what they needed, it would
Yeah.
there would be enough for everyone.
Right.
But then it's sort of like, so it's the people themselves are the system, like, because if they're not sharing, if the people at the top are just hoarding, there's nothing left for anyone, then it's something inherently different. Because even then, like, he tries to explain, when they do go on their mission to ration out the food, right? Um, Barat, or the guy tries to explain to him, like, last month I was on level 162, I'm entitled to this food now. And then Barat tries to explain, like, look, if you were on level 162, you understand how much people need this food down there, right? But then even that guy wouldn't listen, even though he would have a good source of empathy or
Yeah.
compassion for it. Even he was just like, no. So then it's sort of like, how much is the system really going to change? What's going to change with it? I mean, what's even the point in the first place aside from like if it's just a prison for people, like, I get it. It's a fucked up prison, but I get it, right? But
Well, I don't think you're thinking of it allegorically enough. Like, what is the point of like the world we're in right now? Like, who created this world and why are we doing it? Why do we live?
well,
Like.
I mean, I understand it from, like, especially from a humanity point of view, especially when it comes to food, right? Because literally the first people that were sort of kings were people that had control of food supply. Like, if you had control of food supply,
Yeah.
you were basically you were higher up, you had a higher position. That's kind of the people who
Yeah.
first get the food, right? They're entitled, they have first access to it, and then what they deem is sort of what gets I guess handed down, literally handed down. It just So yeah, it's just one of those things where it made me think about that, right? But then it was like, within this system, even when you try to explain, like, when he first gets there and he learns about it, he's like, why don't people just take what they have? And then Trimagasi was just like, what are you, a communist? He was like, don't be spouting that.
Right.
He was like, don't be spouting that communism shit. And then, like, Goreng
Right.
was just like, what do you mean? He's like, just take what you need. Like, it's like basically just have, it wasn't even like, basically have some consideration for, like, your fellow people,
Yeah.
right? But
Have some empathy.
Yeah.
But that's kind of where the divide is between the two characters, is that
Yeah.
Goring has empathy and he's willing to think about what other people might be going through and other people's needs, whereas Trimagasi is a complete narcissist, and like, he would do well in a capitalist system, which I guess is this movie's critiquing, although it apparently also critiques socialist ideas.
Yeah.
But I think maybe in the way that there might not even be enough food for 333.
Yeah, there definitely
people.
is not.
It's just a broken system, but it's more of a critique on the capitalist
Yeah.
side of things, where, like, if you just only care about yours truly and just, like, fuck everyone else, that's kind of the attitude Trimagasi has. And those below are below, so we shit on them, and it is one of those divides where I think the character of Imogiri, I think she understands empathy by entering the system and realizing like how bad, like, she had an idea of how bad things were, but once she realizes that there are more than 200 levels and realizes it is a broken system, then I think that's where her change of attitude came from.
Well, yeah, and it's also not just like the system, but it's time in the system, right? Like, Trimagasi becomes what he is because of how much time he spent in. And even Goreng, like, he comes in idealist, but after spending time in there, he understands how things work, right? And then even
Right.
Imoguri understands how things work. Even, like, after the first month, she's in there for 1 month.
Yeah.
Right. And then she understands, and it's sort of like you come in with this idea, but then when you're met with reality, I guess that's like, I mean, that is one of the messages, right? Like, you come in thinking this one thing, but then when you're hit with reality, how it actually changes you and what you end up becoming. Because they do comment on someone who would be gentle enough to bring a book, and they're like, oh, you brought a book in to read. He was like, yeah, I figured I'd have time to read a book, right? But then it's like he enters this clearly not knowing what is entailed, because other people literally go in with weapons, right? There's one dude with a katana. A dude one guy has a skateboard, not a surfboard for some reason.
Right.
Trimagasi has his freaking Samurai Max knife, which that whole thing was, I don't know, that was
Yeah.
hilarious.
So that is,
And
you're right. That is one of Goring's flaws, is that he was oblivious enough to think that you could get away with just having a book, and it's like you don't know how bad people have it in here.
yeah, he
But
just kind of went and he didn't understand like the rules or anything. He just was just like, oh, there's a diploma if I just voluntarily,
right,
if I volunteer, not vol- if I volunteer for this thing, right? So he just brought a book, and then other people seemingly know or had prior knowledge. Because if I, and then it's like one of those things like how is this advertised to where Goreg is just like, yeah, sure, I'll take part in that thing for 6 months and
right,
I'll just bring my book, but then other people are literally bringing in weapons and swords and spears,
yeah,
and then for some reason Barat like knew ahead enough time for his one possession to be rope
right,
to
yeah.
climb up,
Which is
and then
great.
that's when he gets fucking shitted. I gotta stop saying it because then I keep thinking about it.
I got you. But Trimagasi, it's interesting that he is so selfish that he's never willing to accept that he did something wrong or that something's his
Correct.
fault. Like even if he literally killed somebody, but it's the guy's fault for being an immigrant and being down there.
An illegal
And
immigrant, yeah,
yeah,
for being down there who should have been down there.
right. And when even though he got a lighter sentence, although that's debatable because this place is horrible, but
Hmm.
by going to the hole, he's still like, you're getting a diploma out of this. I'm not getting a diploma, and it's like, dude, you
Yeah, he's like,
killed
I should
somebody.
be. He's like, I should get two for my time here. And they're like,
Right.
dude, you're missing the point
Yeah.
of why you're here. And then even when he eventually cuts off part of Goreng to eat,
Mm.
and the woman saves him, and then sort of gives him the knife, like, and then Goreng. I mean, I'm gonna say he rightfully finishes Tribagasi off, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna say he's entitled to kill that old bastard, right?
Everyone hated that guy.
Like the old guy is blaming Goreng like, oh, you have a choice in not killing me. It's like, dude, you cut off a piece of him and ate him. And then
Right.
like Trimagasi is still blaming Goreng, and it is that selfishness, that mentality that nothing I do is my fault or punishable.
Right.
It's everyone else's choice what they do. Like they have a choice, I don't have a choice. Sort of that selfishness
Totally.
is
And that is a.
embodied.
Oh no, finish up. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just saying is perfectly embodied in that character.
Yes, and I think you hit upon something important, that he had a choice in everything he did up to that point. And
Hmm.
while I think I also agree that Trimagasi has it coming, like I think that moment, that decision he made to, even though he was literally being eaten by somebody, he decided to kill Trimagasi, and that might have been what corrupted him, because up
Yeah.
to that point he had not really done anything wrong. So that might
No,
be
he had.
why he is not able to go up the platform again at the end with the girl, because she, as far as we know, has no crimes. She hasn't done anything wrong. She's just literally been trying to survive, maybe looking for her mom. And who does he see down in the darkness? Is his old dead cellmate. So it's
And then
part of that
they
Dante
just
thing.
walk off into nothing. I was like, what?
Yeah.
What is the plan there, Doc? It's
Yeah.
so that was one thing. Yeah, I mean, I don't think the movie was bad in any way, but it's the reason I don't like it is because it's not my kind of a movie. Like, I mean, like I said earlier, a movie
Yeah.
I'd really go out of my way to
I
watch.
gotcha. Yeah, horror. I've always likened horror movies
But
to like spicy foods, which is like you either love it or you don't.
but for me, like, I don't even like. I mean, I I don't even know if I'd really classify it as horror.
It's not
I don't know
really. It's just
why.
disturbing. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's disturbing. I mean, I know people would categorize as horror or a thriller, but it's like, I
Although.
guess for me, it's not like, I guess what makes it so terrifying is that it's not a monster, right?
Hmm.
It's literally the people, and if you put people in a cage, they're fucking animals, all right. I've been saying this for years. Human beings are goddamn animals and savages, all right. So
Yeah.
it's like, I guess it's that sort of realization, like me, like
Right.
I mean, I know it's like holding up a window and all that shit, or a mirror to society, but you're just like, dude,
Mm.
considering what's going on in the world, it's like, please just show me fucking cats playing the piano or something. All right, it's like
Right. And I understand. I do my fair share of escapism too, right?
it's like
Hey, if you got a good link, send it to me. I'd love to
it's
see a
like I
cat
just
play the
want to see
piano.
Chris. I just want to see Chris talk about comic books. Right? It's
Yes,
like
a little. Let's plug our friend
yes,
Chris.
we will plug comic tropes.
And by our friend, we mean someone
We've
we've
never
never
met,
met.
but we
But
admire
yes,
everything he does. The glorious son of a bitch. All right, Chris on comic tropes on YouTube. All right,
he's a
but
glorious bastard. He is.
he's a glorious son of a bitch. All right.
I don't
But
know why we
like,
started cursing the guy.
it's like we both are just we admire the hell out of him, and then we're
He's
just cussing
great.
him out for no reason. He's a great dude. All right, love him to death. No, but it's like so I do appreciate the movie for what it is. For like,
Mm.
and it isn't like. I don't want to say yay or nay. I mean, it is a discussion. I mean, and there is a lot of sort of anti-capitalism, but then there's also like anti-religion. Like, because before the end
Mhm.
of the month, right? Like, despite everything they've done, they're just like, oh, let's just pray for a better spot. That's all we can do in sort of this thing.
Right,
And then it's
right.
like, oh, if you just pray, because yeah, before their
It,
first shit or their change, I shouldn't, he was like, "Oh, are you a religious person?" Like they had this like month together where they bonded and they understood. And like even when he first came in, I mean,
yeah.
Trimagasi said like, you know, you're lucky. We're in 48. We're basically in the middle. Literally, we're in the middle class, right?
Right.
And then sort of that when they get below, I mean, when they get to what is it, 130? Oh no,
Well,
171. 171 is
yeah. Yeah.
their second assignment. So they're well below.
Hmm.
And then what that turns him into. I mean, he literally ties him up in his sleep and then just
Yeah.
leaves him like that for like the week or the 8 days before he decides to actually. He's like, we can.
Yeah, he does not hesitate. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of those weird things where I mean that I guess is horror. How he like keeps him tied up for like 8 days, like
Hmm.
caressing him, calling him his like little snail or whatever.
Oh God, yeah.
And then that's what that was.
Yeah, but no, you're right. That is what that was. I guess it would be a critique on religion too, because if Trimagasi prays, then you have to assume that it must be a very selfish act.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think I understand where you're coming from. Although you know what, I've sat through Takashi Miike movies with you. Those can't be more disturbing than this, or vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. So I don't really know what it was that just made it like difficult for me to watch because I have seen. I'm like I haven't. It's not like I haven't seen non-fucked up movies.
Yeah. Have you seen Cube? This movie reminded me a lot of Cube.
No, I know Cube. What there was something where it was like I was looking up stuff on platform, and
Mhm.
then they did after I saw the movie just to get some information, and they did sort of relate it to Cube, but now.
Yeah. Cube is another sci-fi where you don't really get, it's just a premise, you're just in the cube. And while I also like that movie, I don't remember it being as political. It's more of a traditional horror movie where like people die with blood splattering, and it's more exhibiting the nature of the horrific puzzle that is the cube, and then the consequences of selfishness on other people, which is what
Right.
platform is to me.
I gotcha. Oh, here's where it was. Someone wrote a review on it, and they referenced Cube in their review, so that's why.
Mm.
Should I just read that? Let's see.
Sure, if you want.
Norman Wilner of Now correctly predicted that the film would win the People's Choice Award, giving it a 5N rating, and writing that the film, and I quote, has everything: low comedy, political allegory. I've said the word allegory so much I can't even say it while I'm reading it. Left field twists, crowd pleasing surprises, spectacular violence, sadism, altruism, and yet more spectacular violence, all wrapped up in high concept horror film that moves the premise of Cube into a merciless vertical structure. It's grotesque and compelling, like Grindhouse, Buñuel. Oh yeah, I was like Buñuel. I almost said Buñuela. I don't know why I added that.
Oh yeah,
Buñuel.
Luis Buñuel, yeah.
Yeah, like Grindhouse, Buñuel, and it never blinks. And that's end quote. And then, yeah, other people have compared it to stuff like, yeah, works of Sam Beckett and all that. And it is one of those, like, because you brought up The Good Place. Spoiler alert, we're going to start talking about The Good Place. That people were thinking, like, comparing it to, The Good Place is comparing it to, was it a French play where it's like, hell is other people? I don't even know if that's the title. Or no, I think that's the finishing quote on the play of like three people locked in a room and their premise is to actually torment each other, and it's sort of like, and it's hell is other people, right? And that's sort of what happens here, not like directly at the beginning of them trying, it's literally the people above them are essentially tormenting them by taking more than they need and eating, and not and sort of like, again, like the system, there is a system in play, but you think, oh, if the people somehow work together, they can overcome the system, but then that's not a reality, right? People just take what's theirs, and then it's like, why should I listen to you?
Right.
No, go ahead, Fran.
Oh no, I was gonna say, yeah, that is definitely the point of the movie, is just that everyone is responsible for their own actions, and they have to like think about whether those actions have consequences or not.
And then it's like one of those things where it's like sometimes, yeah, people won't listen. Not even sometimes, literally, and you have to like just literally beat them over the head with a rod. Like, I mean, because that's one of the things, like, in the system is because it's completely randomized, you can't work your way up to a better position in the tower. You can't do anything to improve your station. It's, you just get where you get places where you get placed, and it's that for 30 days. So it is kind of like just fucked up, because I guess like I mean, I guess I don't want to, if it's the lie of capitalism or sort of the illusion of it is that you can work your way up, right?
Yeah, just pull yourself by your bootstraps and
right, which is like the fantasy of it. Realistically, most people, it's not going to happen when you think about how many people in the world there are versus how many people are rich, yada yada yada. And even Barat, I mean, he did, like, because some of the people commented that they did literally help him up, right? Because he wants to climb out of the tower with his rope, okay, and then the people above, like, they agree, oh yeah, we'll help you, and then the woman shits on his face, okay, and then when they're going, bringing it back, and then when they're going to a lower level and trying to ration out the food, one of the people's like, why are you doing this to me? I helped you climb last month, like, I was kind to you, why aren't you being kind to me? And he's like, no, I understand. And he's like, but I'm trying to be kind to other people. It's not just us two here, even though you were kind to me and I appreciate it. We're trying to pass that on to someone else. But then that guy is just like, dude, come on, I helped you out.
Yeah, quid pro quo.
Yeah, quid pro quo, dog. And then he was like, I understand that, but he's like, you have to understand what other people are going through. And then the other guy, because the dude who said, like, I helped you climb up, he didn't get bashed in the head. It was the fucking other guy who was like, no, I'm on this level. It's my right. He was like,
yeah,
I'm
it's
on
my right. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And it is, I mean, so it is poignant, but yeah, that's why I don't think the movie was bad in any way. It was just tough for me to watch it, and I will say I did give it a thumbs down on Netflix just because I didn't want it to recommend any, because I didn't want Netflix to recommend anything else because I didn't want another Tremors situation. Okay, it's like, dude, I just wanted to watch the 5 Tremors movies. I don't want to watch a whole bunch of terrible movies. All right. So that here I watched it, because before I even watched it, I debated about watching it on the guest account, which I made for my net. So, okay, this is a feature I've been pitching to Netflix. Netflix, if you're listening, all right, have a guest account like you do a kids section. Have one for guests that doesn't save anything, right? So then I partitioned one for me, my sister, my mom, and my dad. My dad has literally never used Netflix. So then I just changed his thing to a guest account. So it just says guest on it.
If your dad ever watches Netflix, he's going to be like, oh my God.
You'd be like, what the? But so I didn't watch
movies.
No, so I didn't watch it on there. So I watched it on mine.
I got you.
But I was just like, I do not want any more recommendations of this. So that's why I say I didn't like it, but I don't think it was bad or anything. So this was something I wanted to ask you about. So our mutual, should I mention his name? Do you think he'll care?
I could always block it out, but yeah.
Kilo.
I'm guessing you're talking about.
Yes, yeah, because you mentioned that. Did you tell him to watch the movie, or what was the?
I talked to him. God, I guess it was a couple months ago now, right? Right after I first saw the movie, and I had texted you about it, and I went, "Hey, there's this Basque movie that I don't know if you want to watch. It's kind of a sci-fi horror, and it is pretty brutal, but if you wanted to, we're gonna probably make a podcast episode about it if you want to be on there." And he was just like, "Yeah, well, I don't know. I don't know what else I could add to it other than yeah, that was brutal." I was like, "All right, I got you." Hard pass from
Kilo.
Because he's like you. He does not. Even though I make the analogy of horror movies being like spicy food, he ironically loves spicy food, but is not into horror movies. So.
Well, yeah, because I was thinking about that. Because there's some movies that, like, again, like you said, like I'll watch some crazy shit, right? And Kilo won't. And like it's one of those things. Like one of the movies I think is really good that he will not watch, which I completely understand, is Battle Royale, right?
Right.
And that's one of those things where it's like when you think about it, it's just like pitting people against each other and sort of the outcome, what people do for themselves versus what they can do for like, everyone else, sort of a thing.
Yeah.
And then even a movie like I think like The Hunger Games he won't watch, even though it's like PG-13. It's still just the premise of like, people like kids pitted
let's
against
call it
each
what
other.
it is. It's just Battle Royale.
It is. It is. But yeah, the premise of kids pitted against each other, they're having to kill each other, which is, I mean, it's perfectly understandable. It's difficult for people to watch. Even if you put a PG-13 tag on it, it's still. Although I don't know, that franchise made over $1 billion, so what the fuck are you gonna do, right?
Yeah, I mean, dude, this movie apparently was in the top 10 for Netflix for a little bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, like you said, it won a bunch of awards, and I mean, I personally liked it a lot, and I think it's really impressive for this to be the debut film for this director, because I think he's tackling a lot, like, and the thing with horror movies is, I will like grant that there's a lot of really bad ones, and some can be good until there's that one moment that just completely takes you out of it. Like your suspension of disbelief is just gone because the director made a stupid decision that just doesn't feel right to the movie.
Well,
and that's it. So
sorry, I mean, I definitely had a fucked up thought when the girl was riding the platform back up to the first level, or level 0, I should say. I was like, at the speed she's going, at what point is this platform going to decelerate? Because if it goes all the way up to the top at the current speed, when it stops suddenly, she is going to fly into the ceiling and turn into a grease spot. She is going to her body is going to explode. Okay, so that was one part where I had to like
to slow down, because otherwise they would have to keep buying new
well, they still have to buy new. They still have to buy new
but
glasses all the time, and it was like
but it would be like a hazard for them to like have all that stuff explode around them. There's probably a few hundred meters of it.
What I had wished they showed was when because they did show a scene of them loading up the platform on level 0, right? I wish they had panned up to the camera. Like the camera to show the ceiling, and it's just fucking metal plates and silver were stabbed into the ceiling that can't ever come out because
a bunch
just
of forks stuck on there.
Just that's just what it is. And I was like, all right, but I was just like, this girl's gonna die. But yeah, I was just like, after I watched it, I just couldn't get the movie out of my head. It took me like 2 hours to fall asleep, and then the next day, I started watching Better Off Ted. I was like, let me reset my brain if I watch Better Off Ted. And then chicken, we'll take chicken. I was like, let me.
Right? Yeah. What does that taste like? It tastes like despair.
Despair. It's like, is it possible it just needs salts? And the guy just shakes his head.
That's a good show. Canceled too early.
But no, yeah, I mean, I definitely see it. I try my best not to be like, oh, I don't like it, so how can anyone like it? Yeah, I can definitely see why people would like it and all that stuff. And again, I don't think it's a bad movie or anything. It was just like tricky for me to watch.
Yeah, just not your cup of tea.
I mean, especially when he woke up. I mean, it was fine for me until he woke up tied to a bed and the dude was caressing his hair. And then I was like, this isn't like a superhero movie. I was like, there's no way this guy's getting out of this bed.
You're like, please tell me you got bitten by a radioactive spider in the night.
Please. In the night they left one through the cracks where he can rip out his. I was like, no, he is not like ripping out these sheets or anything. This man is just here.
What a hard turn that would have been if he like overnight he's actually a mutant and his power awoke. And he just awoke from having no powers to becoming super strong.
Then suddenly it cuts to Professor X, like some bootleg Spaniard Professor X, like off screen or something.
Actually, he was in the movie. He's the one that tells them to save the panna cotta as a message. That's Professor X.
Oh my God, you're right. All right, so the whole movie could have easily been solved with latent mutant abilities. Okay.
So Elojo is actually Spanish for the X-Men. Dude, imagine how many hits we would actually get if we said this was a superhero movie.
Oh man, so much clickbait and false advertising, and so many thumbs down. It would be amazing.
Speaking of thumbs down, like I totally understand your rationale for giving it a thumbs down. Netflix, that's not really, and who cares about Netflix ratings anyway? But,
yeah.
But I did see something funny on. I was reading someone's review of the film, and somebody's comment, like the critic liked the movie a lot.
Uh-huh.
And somebody angrily commented, "You saw a different movie than I did. Horrible film." And then someone else angrily replied with, "You're probably a Fast and the Furious fan. Keep watching that brainless mumbo jumbo." So there's two people that would probably not ration out each other's meals.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things. It's like if someone doesn't like it, they're just gonna, like, their opinions, that's it, right? Like...
Yeah, right.
Right, so, like, even me, like, you like it, I didn't like it. That doesn't mean we can't have, like, a discussion about the movie or anything, right?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. Sorry, that's just making me laugh thinking about that, because that is so much what you see on internet comments or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And that is, like, and that was the whole point of the movie, was to open discussion, not just yay or nay, like thumbs up, thumbs down. That's not what a discussion is, right?
Right.
It's an exchange of ideas.
Yeah, the director himself said something like he didn't want to preach on anybody. He just wanted to, like, bring something to light. Let me see if I can actually find the quote.
Make something actual visceral.
Oh, not to indoctrinate or to lecture. The film only aspires to expose. So, yeah, right. That's what he said.
Yeah, I think it does do a good job of that. I mean, it's you definitely get the different views, and you get like the different understanding of the different circumstances, and then yeah, I mean, because even after when he sees Imogiri, I should say, when he sees her, and then she brings a dog in because of the time he spent in there, right? She just thinks this is her pet. She can't live without her dog. He sees it. He's like, you just brought in a sausage. He's like, that's all anyone's going to see.
Right.
And then, basically just like the realism sort of his time in there, what that changed of his perspective of like him bringing a book just to read and this lady bringing in a dog. It's just her pet. But like because of the hardened time, it's just like that's just food. And then that was one thing this has nothing to do with the movie. I was thinking about this before, about whether it would be better to have a cow or a chicken. And I think a chicken would be better.
Okay, so if we're in a podcast version of the platform, and you know we'd be down in the level 300s with only one occasional listener that's just a rogue going down the platform looking for somebody. So we're starving for listeners, and then you get to pick one item to bring in. What would you bring?
I mean, realistically, a lightsaber.
Nice. All right, if you're going with that, I'd bring like a batarang. Is that the thing that shoots out like the grappling hook?
Yeah.
Just because that's what you need.
Well, it's the back grapple. Yeah, just the zip up.
You have like 5 crucial seconds where someone's just shocked that you popped up. You just go, "I'm Batman," and then you just keep going up. And then I think you're gonna be safe all the way to the top.
You're not wrong, but no, yeah, I don't know what I would actually bring in. I mean, because I was thinking about that, where it was like, oh, what would you take if you had to be locked in a room or something and you had access to one thing? Like, what would it be? I was thinking about this long before I ever watched this movie, because that's how my mind works.
Hmm.
And I was thinking, because I was like, yeah, I could probably be locked in a cell. And then I was just thinking, what would I actually need? And I was like, could I somehow get like an unlimited supply of Sudoku books? Would that be allowed? Like where I just finish one, they bring me another.
Oh, nice. Right, right.
But
Um,
I don't know. It's completely random.
yeah, maybe there's some. You know what? I think I've thought about it too because both
Whiskey,
and
kilo.
well, two friends of ours did survival living. You can tell I had to edit something there.
Whiskey and kilo.
Yeah, whiskey and kilo. Thank you, Rico. Two friends of ours had.
Do you want me to say the names like robots, Fred?
Yeah. Say whiskey and kilo.
Whiskey, kilo.
Every episode has to have some horrible editing.
It has to have it. I was listening to the fucking El Mariachi one. That was cracking me up. Our discussion about we had to leave
Did you see it coming?
Yeah, I heard it. It was clear as day. Me going, Zool. And it made me laugh more than anything.
Once you heard it, did you remember accidentally saying El Mariachi at that point?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
Because you know me, I never pay attention when I talk. But then when I heard how I was saying that sentence,
you do more than I do. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, I did say El Mariachi, and then yeah, that Azul. Because actually, that was when you asked me to say it. I was concerned about timing, right? How many syllables El Mariachi is versus saying
Right.
Azul, the length of time. I was like, was Fran going to be able to overwrite the whole thing with me saying this one word? But then that's why I tried saying it so exaggerated. I was like, oh, that's awesome, Fran.
Yeah.
Your editing
I mean,
skills
I thought.
are.
I mean, the first one I did with the wood woo, or just wood. I was like, you know what? He's speaking in a normal enough tone here. Let me clip this out and put it over here. And yeah, it stuck out so much. I was like, all right, yeah, you might as well say it like that.
It is one of those things because again, this has nothing to do with anything. Like per usual, I was listening to commentary on The Simpsons, right?
Mhm.
And they needed Homer. They needed an extra dough for Homer, and then they're like, okay, we literally have millions of recordings of Homer saying dough. We can just stick
Right.
another one in. So they did that, but then when they were going over it, it stuck out. They're like, you can tell this is from something else, that this wasn't
Right.
said around these other
Oh,
words. So
That's
they
funny.
they so
Yeah.
they asked him to fully record the whole thing over. They're like, it needed to be organic, like you can tell, even if
Right.
you think
can
you wouldn't be
tell.
able to tell. He's like, you could tell. So then when I heard myself go wood woo or whatever,
Yeah.
like that quote stuck in my head. I was like, I don't know if it's just us that could tell, or if it's
No.
that much sticking out. But then when we did it with the Azul thing, I was like, that's awesome. That's the way it should be.
Yeah, there are very many subtleties that you don't realize are going on in every single discussion. That yeah, some things are going to stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, you really don't.
Simpsons is right. Although they might have, was it them that said they had the actor that played the Roadrunner, and he's like, or she was like, I only got paid for one beat.
Yes, that was that joke where he's like, "Oh, meep, meep." He's like, "Actually, it was just meep. I only got paid for one, and they doubled it up in post. The bastards."
Yeah. Was that also Simpsons?
Yeah, that was a
Or
joke
that-
in The
okay.
Simpsons. That was actually the
Nice.
episode where Homer had to do Poochie, because yeah, she was the voice actor he would be working with, and then
Right.
yeah, that's.
Oh my God, maybe that's what we should be doing is a Simpsons podcast with
I'm
your
sh-
like wealth of knowledge from that.
I'm sure that's been done to death.
Yeah,
Although,
that's the thing. It's
Yeah.
like this. I don't think I've seen too many podcasts like talk about these types of movies. So to me, this is interesting because this is what I like. But although I'm sorry, Rico, putting you
No,
through this.
I'm here with you, Fran. Because there was a one once he woke up tied up. I wanted to stop him. I was like, this is really hard for me to watch, like him being tied up with the
Yeah.
dude. But then I was like, no, let me sit through this whole thing, because otherwise I'll be like, Fran, I got through 10 minutes of the movie. You'd be like, really? I'm like, yep. Tapped out. But I was like,
Right.
no, let me watch the whole thing. I was like, expand your horizons and all that bullshit.
And it's funny. Yeah, no, I gotcha. Funny that you mentioned that because as you dropped in a little hint of it the other episode, this was a different premise before when we initially tried to launch this podcast. I had thought of doing it with a 3-movie system where we just picked whichever one we thought was watchable. And in that version, in my head, I was like, it's okay if in that one you just watch 5 or 10 minutes and go like, I can't do this. Because spoiler for an episode that was never released, but I could not sit through Cannonball Run. I thought it was the worst movie ever.
I did not understand why the whole thing.
You did. God bless you, man.
Well, yeah, that was definitely one of those things, right, where it was like, it got like a really high fan rating, but the critical rating was abysmal. And then...
I'm going to have to side with the critics on this one.
Yeah, and then it was like, I was like, I'm not sure if it's the veil of time or if there was just no other options as to why this movie is so, like, heralded or lauded.
Yeah. Because it is lauded.
It is a movie you hear about a lot, right? That when you sit and you watch it, you're like, what the fuck is this? Like...
I couldn't get past certain parts. I was just like, the comedy's all horrible. The acting is terrible.
It has fucking Burt Reynolds and Jackie Chan. I was like, this is a movie I should like.
Exactly.
And then I was like, what the hell is this?
I was like, what is happening? Like, there was so much potential there.
But then, that's one of those things where it made a crap ton of money, and then fans liked it. And then, we're finally, because we never even recorded that podcast, Fran, so it's like now we're finally filling in. But, no, I know, so that's why I was like, I don't want to tap out of this film. I was like, Fran's watch the whole thing, let me watch the whole thing, otherwise our discussion is going to just be, it's not even going to be a discussion. I'm like, Fran, I watched 10 minutes, and you're like, okay, well, I got 2 pages of notes here, Richard. I'm like, well, then it's all you, Fran, take it away. Okay, it's like...
Well, I appreciate your self-sacrifice there, Rico, and I think it made the episode more interesting for you to have a slightly different perspective on this.
Oh, yeah, so again, like, I've said this a dozen times, like, I don't think the movie was bad, and I'm not going to just be like, oh, horrible movie, how did anyone like this movie, or anything like that. But, yeah, for me, my personal taste, it was tricky for me to get through. Although, it was mainly that part, when they were on the level together in 171. After that, it wasn't that bad. Because, it was like... Because you were kind of like Goreng at that point, where you were sort of acclimatized to the situation, or acclimated. God, I've been watching so much British crap. I'm saying acclimatized instead of acclimated. Where you are sort of acclimated. And I don't think there was anything too shocking. The dog thing I was very concerned about.
There's a lot of rough parts.
There was a lot of rough parts, right? But it wasn't, for me, it wasn't anything as sort of like feeling like my skin was crawling, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like that.
No, it is definitely a hard watch.
Yeah,
is, like, even I didn't want to watch it again. Like, I gotcha. Like, to me, I'm glad I saw it. Like, it's an amazing movie. It's really well done, but it's gonna be a while until I see it again, because it is just really visually, and just everything about it is hard to take. But yeah, I thought it was really, really well done. And I found something funny about someone in a website asked the director why Goring wouldn't have been accepted. Is there a scenario where Goring would not be accepted? And he said, oh, like, Goring is meat on the platform. They'd accept him no matter what. But that way of approaching the interview by the administration makes it seem that access to the platform is shown as a great opportunity, as a luxury to aspire to, where it's actually your perdition. And I'm sure we've all been through some job interview like this.
Yeah, because that was the thing. It was like she was all checking or putting X's literally on one side of the paper, and then when he asked that question about the time, then she moved over to the other side and made a marking correct. It's like, what the fuck? And that's literally, like, everyone can relate to that. Like, suddenly you say something, like, inconsequential, but then someone's like, and, like, it just feels like they're just judging you completely, and you're like, did I just fuck everything up? But yeah, it's definitely a system that'll just accept anyone, and then it's like you're just left to your own, dog. It's like, yeah, good luck.
Yeah, good luck. If the platform was the podcast world, is there something you wouldn't do for this podcast?
I don't know, Fran. It's like, whatever. I'm prostituting myself out of enough for this. Whatever we need to do to succeed, Freya. Whatever we need to do.
There we go. Going to the top, baby.
Going to the top. First thought, best thought. All right.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we'll see you next week with something else.
Yeah. Key low, 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 low.